Particularly here, it's relevant to the issue of Roman Catholicism. I really want you to think for me for a moment. Take your mind out of the box. Think with me. Under the Mosaic economy, was there a head of the religion? Yeah, it was the high priest. Did he wear these funny clothes? Oh yeah, he had this big long hat, these golden things and sandals, and he was the dude all dressed up. He was the high priest. He was the only one allowed into the sanctum sanctorum. He was the only one who could make the ultimate sacrifice on the day of atonement of Yom Kippur. He was the top of the pyramid scheme. He was numero uno, the high priest. In Roman Catholicism, do they have one dude who was the top of the CEO of the corporation? Yeah, this funny guy. Where's this big pointed hats and stuff? Has the golden girdle and the little robes. He runs in to do sacrifice. He's the top man. He gets to speak ex cathedra. He says, this is interesting. Now back under Moses' day, they had a whole priestcraft thing, a whole class of people who were priests. Wore funny clothes, ran around, did services at an altar, gave sacrifices. Well, in Roman Catholicism, guess what? They have priests. Wear the funny clothes, gowns. They have altars. They do sacrifices. You go back to the Old Testament, those Jewish priests had incense. They put the incense in these metal balls and swinging them like this. Incense and smoke, and there were tingling bells, and there were choirs. And you go over to Roman Catholicism, they have that swinging ball, and they have the bells. And you say, what? This is like a mere reflection. And then the people in the Old Testament, they were not participating in worshiping. They enjoyed the work being done up front. They had the orchestra and the choirs, and there wasn't participatory worship going on exactly. There was a big, beautiful scene. And you go to Roman Catholicism, and up front, they have the choirs and the monks, and no nobis pacem. Sure, they got it all, man. And when you begin to think about it, and you begin to realize that Roman Catholicism is simply retrogressively the old Judaism, garbed up with the few Jesus words. In the Old Testament, the emphasis was the covenant of works. The emphasis was on works. Do this, and thou shalt live. Break this, and thou shalt die. And the priest gets up. Do this, you live. Don't, you die. Well, you see this whole covenant of works. You see the vestments. You see the altar. You see the idea of a sacrifice being done on that altar. Matter of fact, the architecture. If you go into a Catholic church, what is central is the altar. It's the altar. Where you walk the aisle to receive Jesus at the altar. Okay? Now, when the Reformation came, the first thing they did was take the altar and they moved it to the side and put the pulpit as the central point, because the Word of God is central, not the altar. The preaching of the Word and not the sacrifice of the Mass. The architecture changed. Now we're all priests. The priesthood of the believer, we're supposed to be participating in worship. You're not supposed to sit there listening to a worship team like a bunch of Jews or Catholics. You're supposed to be worshiping God because you are priests of the Most High God.